Hello and welcome to the Whatcom Dads Podcast, the local podcast where we discuss relatable parenting topics to help all the dads and moms out there. I'm Nathan Dwyer.
I'm Chris Roselli.
And I'm Marc Bagley. This week, we discuss how to be better communicators with our kids and how to get them to open up to us. And on Whatcom Dads Recommend, we talk about our favorite annual summer festivals and events here in Whatcom County.
All right, guys, we're back again. Chris, were you trying to kill us? Because I read an article that said rice cereal contains arsenic last week. I appreciate that you were trying to share with us your delightful treat, but what's going on with the rice cereal supply?
You know, it's funny. When you sent me that article, the first thing I did is I went to Gerber's website, and they have a whole FAQ on like safety and arsenic, and it's natural in the environment, and it is, you know, it's fine. And they have the biggest safety standards of any company on earth and more safety standards than the federal government, et cetera, et cetera. So apparently, baby cereals, especially Beech-nut, which I had no idea.
That was the offending brand in the article.
Yeah, that Beech-nut, which I know Beech-nut to be a chewing tobacco company, not a baby food company. I don't know if I've ever bought Beech-nut baby food. I've never heard of it.
I mean, I only know Gerber,
Yeah. Well, and you made baby food. They didn't have it in a jar when your kids were little.
Yeah, we had one of those stone bowls, and we would mash it with another, like a...
You just chewed it in your mouth first, and
yeah,
you dropped it into theirs like a baby bird.
Like a baby bird.
So crazy. I know. I mean, so apparently there's arsenic in some of these, and it's specifically the rice single grain baby cereal, which is exactly what we had. So when you sent me that article, I made myself a bowl of it because it sounded really delicious.
Well, last week was Father's Day, and that got me thinking, you know, I've been a dad now for almost 8 years. I was thinking, what was the most surprising thing to me about becoming a father? So, I mean, a lot of it was surprising, but what was the most surprising? I think that people always tell you that kids grow up so fast, and when you don't have kids, you kind of go, whatever. But time goes by at almost maybe 2 or 3 times the pace once you have kids. And maybe it's because you're busy, and maybe it's because you have more people depending on you. But yeah, I mean, I almost can't remember a time where I didn't have kids, and it's only been 8 years. So that was really, upon reflection, this Father's Day as the thing that kind of caught me off guard the most about becoming a parent.
I think the most surprising thing to Annette and myself initially was when we got in the car after Allie was born to drive away.
There's no instruction book.
And we looked at each other and we said, they're actually letting us take her home. We were shocked. So after the initial surprise wore over, I think the biggest surprise for me, after being single for so long, and was how quickly I fell in love with this little creature. It didn't take any time. And usually when you fall in love, it's a process. But when a baby is born, it's pretty instantaneous. And that surprised me. I didn't think that would happen.
Yeah, Amy said, how can we have a second child? Like, how can I love anybody more than I love our first child? How do I have room in my heart to yet have another child come on in? And I think along those exact same lines, that was really the biggest surprise for me, was how much you can love something so immediately, so instantaneously, and how that love continues to grow as they continue to grow. It evolves and shifts, and it becomes a different, more measurable, tangible kind of love in an interesting way. So,
do you guys have any vivid memories of those first week or two after you brought your first child home? My most vivid one is probably 5 to 7 days in. She was having a tough time going to sleep, and I was just rocking her. And for some reason, she would fall asleep sometimes when you were walking up and down stairs. And so I remember this night that I stayed up all night, and she would sleep for 10, 15 minutes at a time. And I just walked up and down the stairs probably 100, 200 times that night. And I didn't even bat an eye at it. There wasn't any, I'm so tired. She's new. And, that's just one of those memories where I really take to heart what you just said, Mark. Like, oh yeah, well, I could never imagine loving like this. And if I have to walk up and down the stairs for 12 hours to keep you going back to sleep, I'm willing to do it.
Yeah. Why would you not, right? Yeah. It's not even a question.
We had a bassinet that Amy's dad actually had made that the girls both slept in. And when Lexi was a newborn baby, the bassinet, the cradle was in our room. And I never realized how much noise newborn babies make. I mean, all these gurgles and grunts. And of course, as a new parent, we're out of bed immediately. What's wrong? What's going on? And everything else. And eventually we learned that was just normal. But we also learned that became really disruptive. And whenever we'd start to hear the baby wake up, we got tired of having to get up and kind of rock the cradle a little bit. And so I actually made some twine, got some twine out of the garage and taped it to Amy's nightstand. And so in the middle of the night, Amy could just reach over and pull the string.
Look at you. You probably could have made a lot of money on something like that.
Very MacGyver of you.
So I do remember that. I remember that vividly. And we thought we were going to have the baby in Lexi and Alyssa both. Well, Lexi, we thought we were going to have Lexi in our room, 3 months, until we finally were like, okay, let's put her in a room for a crib. 3 weeks, we booted her. Just too much noise, too much. We were not getting good enough sleep. And then we just thought, you know what? She'll be fine. We just had to trust that she was going to be just fine in her own room.
Well, this is a good segue to a listener mailbag question we got a few weeks ago from a listener, Bill. And his question was, he was looking for some tips or help with trying to get his baby to go to sleep without having to rock them. There's that sort of time where you want to be able to put them in the crib in a different room, but they're used to being rocked to sleep. And you guys have any thoughts or remember sort of what worked, what didn't work, what you tried? Some of these things are just sort of a Hail Mary. You try something different every night, and when something sticks, you do it.
For us, everyone said just walk away and they'll fall asleep. And we lived in a condo with shared walls, and we did not want to do that to our neighbors. But everyone says do it 2 or 3 nights, and eventually they'll just fall asleep on their own. Honestly, Nathan, I don't remember what we did, but that's one thing that was recommended, but we never did do it. Part of it was the shared walls, but part of it was we just felt terrible for Allie, just crying and screaming and not knowing what was going on.
Yeah. For us, every one of our friends who had babies who slept through the night early on followed the model of On Becoming Babywise, which is a book which follows a model of instead of feeding, then putting your child to sleep, and then awake, you mix that up, and it's actually sleep, feed, awake. Sleep, feed, awake. And so that way the baby doesn't expect to be fed in order to be soothed to go to sleep. So that's one of the kind of the models behind that. Part of that also is a part of the sleep training, which is to walk away as they're crying. And we knew it was a successful model for our friends. We knew that we were going to have to do that. And it was the first time we did it, Lexi cried for about 30 minutes. And it felt like a week.
I'm sure.
Amy got on the phone talking to her friends. She called her mom. We kept pulling the other back. I was ready to go upstairs. I'm going to go get her. No. You just let's 5 more minutes. More minutes. And then 5 minutes would pass. She would say, "Oh, all right, I'm going to go get her." No, that's okay. And then the next day she cried for 15 minutes, and the next day she cried for 10 minutes, and after that, really, it was quite lovely.
It does work. It's just so hard to do.
Yeah. So for us in our family, and I know for some folks, there's controversy behind that model of letting your baby cry. Some folks just cannot imagine doing that. For us, we are so glad we did that with both girls. Mm-hmm. They slept through the night. They were great sleepers early on because.
And I'm sure the second was a lot easier than the first.
Absolutely,
because you knew it worked.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I've mentioned a few times on the podcast this book that we swore by, Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child by Dr. Marc Weissbluth. That's really helpful. Some other things are just, you can sort of reach that in-between point where you've been rocking the child and they're used to that. You can put them in the crib and sort of just keep one hand on them and then sort of gradually start to work away. That maybe is like a transitional thing. And the other thing is, put the baby down when they're tired, but not overtired.
Yeah. When
they get overtired, you've lost.
Yep.
And so that the baby has to be able to teach themselves to self-soothe and calm down.
Certainly.
We had one child who was a hair twirler from an early age. That was her self-soothing mechanism. Another two of them, thumb suckers. And then I had one pacifier kid. So eventually those things tended to work for, and again, there's pros and cons to thumb sucking and pacifiers. We won't get into those debates now, but find something that works, help your baby self-soothe themselves, and eventually they're going to figure it out. But don't feel bad if you're struggling. It's something we've all gone through.
Oh boy. Yeah, absolutely.
A little bourbon on the gums works as well. That's what my grandma told me.
I thought that was for teething. Or is that sleep as well as anything else?
Well, it was bourbon on my gums. That's right.
Your life can change in an instant. Car accidents impact all aspects of your life and lead to pain and suffering, medical bills, and time missed from work. Robinson and Kole, attorneys in Bellingham, can help. They have represented thousands of clients since 1979. They also handle other types of injury claims, including workers' compensation. Consultations are always free and are available in Spanish. Robinson and Kole. When you need us, we will be here.
All right, for our parenting topic this week, we're going to talk about some thoughts on trying to be better communicators with our kids, maybe opportunities to maybe have them just open up to you, to have some talks, some chats. I think that's something that we often struggle with. And so maybe we can just kind of reflect on, like, what was it like for you growing up? Did you have a very open relationship talking to your parents about things? Was it a bit of a struggle?
Yeah, my parents they weren't necessarily an open book by any means, but we could talk to our parents. But I feel like Amy and I are much more open. I think our kids are much more comfortable coming to us than, and granted, Lexi's only 15 still, right? So we haven't gotten into the depths of high school and really sharing some things, but Lexi shares a lot with Amy especially. I think they share more with us than perhaps I felt comfortable sharing with my parents.
Yeah, my kids share way more with me and Annette than I ever did with my parents, or vice versa. We were not a very communicative family. Still aren't, for whatever reasons. And so I'm not really good when it comes to that kind of communication. I just tend to keep things inside because that's how I was raised. But boy, yeah, our kids have told us things where I went, wow. I don't know if I'm saying good for you or boy, you shouldn't have told me, but and I think a lot of it, of course, is Annette. And like you, Chris, they tell her a whole lot more than they tell me. But yeah, our kids are pretty open, which is,
I think it's a really good thing.
I think it's a really good thing too.
Yeah, I had difficulty communicating with my parents. I wouldn't say it was a struggle, but a little bit like you, Mark. It just wasn't something that was worked on. It just, you sort of had your way of going about it. And so that made me think, so what are some ways that we can sort of make an effort to communicate with our kids? And in doing so, what are some ways to really get them to open up to us a little bit? And so I'm going to put a link to the Barbara Coloroso book, Kids Are Worth It. There's a chapter in there that talks a little bit about some of these things, and then also a couple other articles that I found. But, if you had something really not difficult, but maybe something pressing or something kind of heavy to talk to your kids about, is there like a certain thing that you would do, or would you try and go on a drive or take them out to dinner, or how do you broach those big issues and make some space for maybe important topics to discuss?
I think it was a two-pronged approach for us. Number one, to make sure your kids understand and know, excuse me, and know that you want to be interested and you do want to talk to them about issues that are important to them, no matter what it is. But the second part is just as important. And when your kid does come to you and want to talk about whatever it is, no matter how important, that you make the time for them then and there. Because if you tell your kids, yep, I'm open anytime, and they come to you and you say, oh, I'm doing the dishes. Gotta feed the dog. I'm working out. Gotta run your brother to soccer practice. That's when I think you lose them. I think it's a two-pronged approach.
Yeah, and you don't know how, heavy that conversation, what they're coming to, and if you miss that opportunity, there are some real issues that teenagers and young adults are dealing with these days.
And to work up the gumption and the courage then to come and talk to you about it, you've got to drop everything and just be in the moment with them.
Yeah, and I think along the way, you've got to build a real sense of trust with your kids so that way they feel even comfortable to come to you in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's something that Amy and I have worked really hard on, is to talk with them that no matter what it is that they want to talk about, something that they're unsure about, something that they, we've told them, if you have questions about, right now Alyssa's 12, right? So they're in the heart of sex ed and everything else. We've told them, if you want to know about sex, if you want to know about any of these things, come to us. We know about it. We will give you the straight facts. Mm-hmm. And we probably know it more accurately than your friends do. So, and I'm sure you're hearing it from your friends, but if you have questions about certain things that you're hearing about at school that you want to get the facts on, come talk to us. Mm-hmm. It's adults in our culture that make that topic so taboo. And it's hard. And I make it sound like it's so easy to just casually talk to my daughters about that topic. It's not.
No.
But what I've learned in talking with them is really how they're just kind of black and white. And, I remember when I got stuck with the talk, Amy was out of town and Lexi wanted to know the full details of where baby comes from and how it all happens, but how does the fertilizer get in there, and so I had to be straight blunt and say, well, here's what happens. Now her face was hilarious when I told her how that happens. But it was black and white, matter of fact, really easy, and I think if we make it less taboo and more comfortable for them to talk.
Yeah, I think we'll get a guest on to really go over that, and maybe the talking to your kids about drug stuff, because that's heavy stuff, and I'd love to get some outside opinions to help our listeners with that.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, let me ask you a question. Nathan, you're not quite there yet with the age of your kids, so I'm going to direct this to Chris. Do you think it's okay to have these heavy conversations and kind of meet your kids where they're at, meaning via text or on some sort of, not social media, but platforms that they're about? Would it be okay if your daughters asked you a heavy question on a text? Would you answer them on a text? Or do you think it all needs to be face-to-face, sitting across the table, on the couch, in the car, whatever?
Yeah, I think when all of us have had texting conversations with folks, no matter what the topic is, where you get into the text and you realize, I'm just going to pick up the phone and call this person. Why am I texting this? And I think that topic just requires so much information and so many questions and so many answers.
And I'm not talking just sex. I'm talking about anything.
Anything. It depends on what the topic is, and if it's a quick answer, what do you want what kind of blizzard do you want at Dairy Queen? Well, sure, send me a text, I'll tell you. But if it's, how, where does a baby come from and how did it all start with you and mom? Well,
I don't know. It just seems like kids communicate so differently than, my gosh, I did. And, the two of you are younger than me, but even then, how you communicate with your parents. I'm just wondering if it's okay for parents to have tough conversations or real open communication conversations in ways that are not face-to-face.
I would guess no. If Lexi texted me, can I go out tonight? I'm thinking a couple years from now when she's driving and in high school. Can I stay out later than normal tonight? sure, the text back could be no, and that's a quick. Or if there needs to be more of a discussion, then pick up the phone. We need to talk, And then, of course, deeper conversations. I think. Sure, face-to-face certainly helps. But if you're talking to your kids and face-to-face is awkward for folks, and a conversation via phone or text is a way to be able to get a kid to open up with you, that's certainly better than nothing.
I get some of the most pieces of information from my son via text. I mean, we always follow up with a conversation, but I'll get a text that doesn't fit on the screen with just a bunch of information. I'm like, thank God he's telling me. This is awesome. Really great.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I was going to say it's probably not preferable, but if that's what your kid's comfortable with and that's the only way you're going to get it, it's better than nothing.
Yeah. And it's a great place to start because then at least it gets it out there, right?
And you know what they're thinking. You know what they're worrying about.
And then you can call or follow up next time and say, hey, I was reading that text again and you said something in there. So I don't know. I think as technology changes, as the way we communicate changes, I think we're going to see... And I'm not saying this is a good thing, but we may be seeing less of this nuclear family conversation around the dinner table or in the car and more of this kind of on-the-fly type of back and forth. And I don't know if it's good or bad, but maybe some conversation is better than no conversation.
I think to go back to something else you said, when they are talking to you about these important things, you've got to listen with your whole body, right? You got to put your phone away, turn it off, focus. You can't be focused on something else. You've got to really devote and show them. I mean, I'm not a great listener, but I know there's things called active listening. And if there's ever a time to do it, that's it. And then the other thing is, if there is something in the conversation that you need to discipline or correct or reprimand them about, empathize with them, connect with them. You can do the correction stuff later, right? You don't want to immediately be like, oh, you did that wrong, or oh, that's not what you should do. I think that, again, that's where you're going to lose them. The next time they're not going to come through. I think Anne-Marie in one of our episodes, something like that before, was like calm, connect, correct. Just really make sure that you're connecting with them first. And then if you have to correct them, make sure you do it later.
And speaking of connecting, Amy made a good point in really paying attention to kind of how each of our kids, in our particular case, they've got different love languages to help sort of share when there's sort of a need. And with Lexi, for instance, it's, do you want to go have lunch today? So she'll come home from school and she'll want to have lunch. She'll email me and say, hey, do you want to go have lunch? Which is really her way of saying, I need some dad time, and so I try to make the best effort I can to be able to be available for that.
And if you're struggling talking to your kids, ask them open-ended questions. That's going to get them talking more than just what did you have for lunch today?
Was school good today?
Yeah. So this article I looked at had some good examples, sort of like, what are you really looking forward to this week? Or, what do you think your grandma is doing right now? Or something like, what do you think would be the worst superpower you could have? Those sorts of things. If you're struggling, that might start a conversation. If you ask a question that just has a concrete answer, they're going to answer it. And if they're, especially a teenager, sometimes they're not going to want to talk much. And so if you're giving them an option to just give you a one-word answer, you're not going to accomplish very much. Well, good. Well, hopefully that was helpful. Again, there's some links in the show notes, but hopefully you guys can set aside some time to just talk with your kids and develop that rapport that's going to allow them to come to you when they need you down the road. All right, this week on Whatcom Dads Recommend, it is summertime. School is out. Let's talk about our favorite summer festivals, events, annual things that happen here in Whatcom County. Now, some of these might still be on pause, or we still might not know if they're going to go through this year, but I asked each of us to come up with 2 things that we really like that comes around in the summertime here in Whatcom County. So, Chris, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, we've always loved Ski to Sea Weekend. I've always been on a team myself, and of course, I've loved having my kids really help me get ready for that and cheer me on and see me at the handoff and things like that. But really, the Blossom Time Parade, which many call the Ski to Sea Parade, now called the Memorial Day Parade, is always one of our favorite things to do. We love going to the parade and seeing the different tractors and floats and horses and all those things go by. So we love all of the activities that have to do with the Ski to Sea Weekend.
sort of a good kickoff to summer.
It really is, yeah.
So representing the North County, we enjoy the Blaine 4th of July celebration. Big parade, huge car show. If you're into car shows, that is the one to go to. There's a ton of food, crafts, games for the kids. There's a lot going on. It's packed, and it's a good way to spend the 4th of July morning and early afternoon.
Right on.
You took me one year, and now I take my family. So you've made a believer out of me. One that I really like, I think is in September, but I think we'll still call it summer. And it's the Greekfest at the local St. Sophia Greek Orthodox Church. Not only can you get some killer Greek food, but there's often music and dancing and some games like a bounce house and things for the kids. I'll admit that I think it usually runs like a Friday through Monday. It's not unheard of for me to go twice during the during the weekend. Usually like Friday night get takeout from there and take it home, and then Sunday go in the afternoon. And I tried to check today online to see if they're going to have it again this year. It didn't look like they were completely finalized with their details, but check your local listings for the Greek Fest here in Bellingham. It's a good summer activity.
Yeah, right on. This isn't one specific, only one event, but we go to the farmers market usually in the summertime. We don't really go in the spring. It does, or even in the winter. I know it kind of runs year round now, but we love going to the farmers market and starting in June throughout the summer. So, so many great vendors, so many great restaurants. We tons of really good produce from our local farmers who do really amazing things.
Whatcom County does a good job of movies outside in the summer. I know they do it down at Fairhaven in the Village Green. They do it up in Ferndale at one of the local parks, and it's pretty easy to find an outdoor movie on a nice summer evening. Problem is, they don't start till like 9:30.
Yeah.
So it's a late night if you have little kids, but it's a fun way to spend an evening with your family.
Absolutely. And sort of a more athletic one that I've participated in a couple times is the Lake Padden Triathlon. I think it's traditionally been in June. I looked, and this year it's going to happen in August, and maybe they have restricted registration due to COVID still. But even if you're not competing, it's at Lake Padden. There's usually 2 divisions, a more recreational one that I was clearly in, and then a more competitive one. But just to go and cheer on people who are, biking, swimming, and running, and just a good sort of community atmosphere at the Lake Padden Triathlon.
And so because, Nathan, I can never follow the rules and always have to have an extra one.
I was going to pull a Marc Bagley.
Were you?
Yeah, but you go ahead.
Okay, please. Thank you. I don't know if this is actually still going on, and I could not find information on the website, but summer evenings at Hovander Park in Ferndale, at the house, the bats that live in the attic come out at night to feed. And in the past, they've had a guided walk, and you can actually go and listen and watch the bats leave the rafters of this old house to go on their nightly feed. And when our kids did it, it was fascinating. And again, I couldn't find information on it today when I looked, but if it's still around, it's a really cool, unique activity.
The one I was going to add, I was going to pull a Marc Bagley on, also, speaking of parks, is the Elizabeth Park Thursday night music.
Yes.
Music in the park. Great park, great community neighborhood park, and there's always good music. Mallard's usually has like an ice cream truck there.
There's usually a food truck.
So it's a great family event.
Yeah, and it's the sort of thing where people are up dancing, and people are bringing their picnics and maybe smuggling in some things in their picnic basket. But
and they got a playground, so little ones can play on the playground. It's a great park.
Well, plenty to do. Things are opening back up. Check out some links for those items that we mentioned, and get out there this summer and enjoy our beautiful Whatcom County. So have you guys ever had an instance where you think that your kid, and maybe your kids are older now, but where they said something and you did not believe them, and you knew that it couldn't possibly be true what they were telling you, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh yeah, they were telling you the truth? We have Friday night movie nights some Fridays, and this past Friday we chose Herbie the Love Bug Fully Loaded, the early 2000 remake of the Herbie movies. it's a great movie for probably kids ages 6-ish. So maybe a couple of mine were a little young, but it's G-rated. It's a Disney movie. There's not many of those. So anyway, we watched Herbie. Kids had a great time. The very next day, we are driving home from the Northwest soccer fields, my daughter's last soccer game. And my daughter says, "Hey, Dad, there's Herbie the Love Bug." And we kept driving. We're going pretty fast. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "It was parked over there." And I'm thinking, what are the odds of that really being true? No, Dad, it was. And the other two kids didn't see it. So they said, "Yeah, Dad, let's go back and see." I said, "No, we've got to go pick up lunch. No, I'm sure it was just another Volkswagen Bug." "No, Dad, it was Herbie. Herbie was there." No. So we go pick up lunch. And finally, I'm like, you know what? Just to prove it to them, we'll go back by that place on the way home from getting the lunch just to prove to them. And they were like, "Dad, Herbie's going to have left. You better go faster." And sure enough, we turn around, we drive back by, and I kid you not.
No way.
There it is.
There it is. Number 53 with the blue and red stripes on it.
Oh my gosh.
Is parked in a parking lot. So we pull up, the kids are like, "Oh my gosh, there's Herbie." So, number one, what are the chances that in their entire lifetime, on Friday, I chose to show them that movie, and on Saturday, they spot this car? And two, what a jerk I feel like thinking that there's no conceivable way that Herbie the Love Bug car is in Bellingham that very next day. So, trust your kids, I guess. I don't know. Am I a bad dad for just assuming that my daughter was making something up or saw something that she didn't really see?
Yeah, because you're thinking probably just another white Volkswagen.
Sure, I was
right,
so confident. Like, see, it's just a white Bug. It doesn't have the racing stripe. It doesn't have the number.
Well, because I think a lot of the times they are incorrect, right? They think they know something, and maybe they've just
you can't think you're a
something.
bad dad, because if you believe everything your kids tell you, you'll be spending a lot of time spinning your wheels.
But kudos to you for actually turning around to just sort of look at it, right? So even though internally you're having this conversation in your head being, thinking, I can't believe I'm turning around to go look at a white Volkswagen that she obviously is mistaking as Herbie.
Well, I did it to prove her wrong, Chris. And who turned out on the short end of that stick? So
have you met your daughter, though? She's pretty sharp.
She is a smart one.
I guess, but man, what a coincidence, and kudos to her. So I think until she does me wrong, I'm going to keep believing her.
Well, something similar in a way happened this last week as well. Alyssa came home from school. I picked her up. We were at home for a few hours, and she turns to me after I had seen her for a few hours, and she said, "Oh, Dad, guess what?" And I said, "What?" And she said, "I was elected 7th grade class president."
Just like out of the blue?
Out of the blue. She had told us.
She buried the lead.
So, so she had told us that she wanted to apply to be able to run. And, I thought that was really cool, but quite frankly, I mean, she was running against the person who was the president this year. It's been a COVID year. How many people has she had a chance to really actually get to know? And I thought it was super cool for even putting herself out there to do it. And so I honestly thought she was making a mistake. That something was up. I said,
recount.
Right. Well, so instead of trying to prove her wrong necessarily, I was very kindly trying to find her to show me proof that was actually true.
Are you sure you won?
So I said, "How did you learn? How did you know?" There was an email that went out. One of my friends said, "You should see this email." And so I said, "Well, let me see this email. This is amazing. I want to see the email," which really was my way of being, let me see if is this accurate?
Are you confusing this with golf?
Yeah, right.
The lowest score does not win the president.
And son of a gun, she opens the email, and in this email is the list of next year's ASB officers and under 7th grade.
There she is.
Alyssa Roselli, president of Colshan's 7th grade ASB.
Were you ASB president of your high school?
I was.
She is following in the Roselli footsteps. Look at that. Well, kudos to her for putting herself out there and for campaigning, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you campaign in this kind of way. I mean, here's the funny story is she originally thought that she was running for president of her homeroom. So like her class, like just her little homeroom class. And I said, no, sweetie, this is like all 7th grade. And I said, it's all homerooms.
Right.
All the 7th graders in the whole school. Oh, I said, well, do you want to still run? Because no parent wants to see their kid not succeed. Right. But also it's an important lesson too. And she said, sure, of course. I'll run. I'll do that. And so anyway, she did. And so it, of course, turned into a super proud parent moment. So that was the same day that we also went to the first Bells game of the year, and watched our oldest daughter working her first job. So I turned to Amy, and it was just a proud moment, standing there just thinking, wow, Amy, look at this, what has happened today.
There'll be many more, Chris. You got 2 amazing young women there.
Well, thank you.
Well, congrats to you. We'll check in later as to how her
political career's running.
Exactly. She's got a whole summer to figure it out. Thanks for listening. And as always, thanks to our sponsor, Robinson & Kole Attorneys. There's a link to their website in our show notes.
You can reach the show through our Facebook page or our email address, which is whatcomdadspodcast@gmail.com. We welcome feedback and suggestions.
And remember to rate and subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcast app. New episodes are released on Friday mornings. See you next week.
Why are pirates pirates?
Why?
'Cause they just are. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Ben.
Ben who?
Been waiting all year for the end of school. What do you call a dog magician?
What do you call a dog magician?
Alabrador.
A labracadabrador.
Abracadabrador.